Only 58 miles southeast of Cleveland and just 61 miles northwest of Pittsburgh, 60,000 people live in the city of Youngstown, Ohio. Among those 60,000 citizens, Youngstown has a race population of around 44% white, 41% black, and around 8% of other. And as of right now, current day, the poverty rate currently sits around 34.5%, which is 23% higher than the national average of 12.5%, with more than 50% of renters today being
With that being said, an average of 30.7 families in Youngstown are living in poverty, only making around $22,000 to $30,000 a year. Although Youngstown can be a very beautiful place to live, there's clearly a lot that still needs done to help the people with their day-to-day living around here.
And as of October 30th, 2024, the unemployment rate in Youngstown was only 4.70%. This is actually lower than the long-term average of 7.5%. And although Youngstown continues to struggle through a list of challenges, including a struggling economy, high crime rates, and high poverty, it is a low cost of living and an abundance of nature that continues to keep people returning back to the valley year after year. In 2024, U.S. News & World Report ranked Youngstown, Ohio #1 in the top 10 places to retire in all of the country, with one of the biggest reasons being 1, it's very affordable, 2, it would be right in the middle of Cleveland and PA. Let me know in the comments if you think this is accurate when it comes to Youngstown being the most affordable place to retire in all of the U.S.
Growing up in a multi-time murder capital, you're going to hear a lot and you're going to see a lot. But I take a lot of pride in the city that I come from. And that's why today I want to take you guys on a historical walk and teach you the roots of where I come from and the origins of where we are today.
I'm Retro Rock from Bomb City Sports, and you're watching Bombtown, USA, Youngstown, Ohio.
Youngstown's really going downhill, but you just don't hear very many nice things about it anymore.
Located in Liberty Township, just outside of Youngstown and their police jurisdiction, stood the Jungle Inn. Operated in the 30s and 40s by Mike and John Farah, the Jungle Inn would go on to be one of the biggest gambling dens in all of Mahoning and Trumbull County. The Jungle Inn even provided a free taxi service for any and all patrons from downtown. During the day, this would mostly consist of women. This is because, win or lose, the free taxi service allowed them the luxury of getting home in time every day to make their husband's dinner after coming home from the mill. Opening its doors in 1936, the parking lots of the Jungle Inn could accommodate around 500 plus cars, with patrons from all over town being able to enjoy anything from 80 different slot machines, bingo, poker, keno, blackjack, craps, and most importantly, the sports betting. In 1939, a Steubenville native by the name of Dino Crocetti would begin to work the crap tables at the Jungle Inn. When Dino was not working the crap tables, he was given the opportunity to sing for free. This was something he enjoyed to do every week, where it was his dream to do so. Just a few years later, this young man would go on to change his name to Dean Martin and sing alongside the likes of Frank Sinatra and Sammy Davis Jr. After going on to make millions of dollars at a time when $1 million was very unattainable and providing service entertainment to thousands of people, the Jungle Inn would forever close its doors in the late 40s. Reason being for these closures would include tax and liquor license issues and the building not passing all fire codes. The building would go on to play host to a few other businesses but would never open its doors as the Jungle Inn again, and eventually would go on to burn down in the 70s. And just like the Jungle Inn, Mike Farah was not going to last forever. Unfortunately, on June 10, 1961, he would be gunned down by shotgun in his front yard while practicing his golf swing. His brother John living on 19 more years before dying of natural causes.
By the time the late 50s and 60s came, Youngstown would play the role of a mobster haven, with as many as 4 of the main families being represented all at one time in this industrial city that we now live in today.
A prominent name you will hear often among that time would be Sandy Naples, along with his 3 brothers, Billy, Joey, and James. Sandy himself being very important, playing a large role in the Pittsburgh mob. Known to have run multiple gambling rackets and money laundering operations out of his sandwich shop on Wilson Avenue in Youngstown, Ohio, Sandy was not a hard person to find. Sandy would often find himself in trouble with the police and would have to serve time from occasion. Being the man who he was, though, Sandy was able to sneak away every night to spend time with his girlfriend, Mary Ann Vranich. Naples had been known to visit Branich every night at the same time of 11 p.m. They would often eat sandwiches and talk late into the night.
Unfortunately, on the evening of March 11th, 1960, Sandy Naples and his girlfriend Mary Ann would both be gunned down right here on this porch. They would make it to the hospital that night, but would eventually succumb to their wounds.
It has been said that the reason Sandy has been killed was because of his deep ties into the drug trade. Evidence of this would come when the Vindicator would put out an article stating that Naples had a sizable amount of heroin on his person when he was killed. As well as having the drugs, he would be walking the streets that night with $4,000 in his pocket. Naples was not going to die that night without putting up a fight, as he would go on to empty his revolver but go on to not hit either assailant. A few men would go on to be questioned and be considered to be suspects, but no one was ever charged, and to this day, Sandy Naples' death, along with Mary Ann Branich, would both go on to be unsolved.
Sandy's funeral would have over 1,500 people in attendance, all coming to pay their respects to the gangster and Youngstown legend who died that day in 1960.
Billy Naples would eventually go on to take his brother's role at the sandwich shop, but would get killed 3 years later in a very similar fashion. Youngest brother Joe would go on to become capo of the Pittsburgh mob before his assassination in 1991. And James would go on to die of natural causes, dying at the age of 80 years old.
From 1951 all the way to 1962, Youngstown would play host to 80 different bombings. Among those bombings, most notable would be Charlie Cadillac Caballero, who would die that day, along with his 11-year-old son Tommy.
Charlie Jr., the oldest of the two sons, would somehow survive the explosion, and to this day still lives on to tell the tale. This would go on to gather nationwide attention and even cause President JFK to crack down on all and any mob activity. The story of the Caballero family is known nationwide and very available on YouTube and Google. Although those tragic events that would go on to rock the whole nation that day would slow down mob activity, it would not put it to a halt for good. In 1975, 6 bombs would go off, all in a span of just 24 hours. These include 2 car bombs, 3 homes, and a garage. With gambling and racketeering being shut down more and more every day, drugs would begin to take place as the #1 criminal income in the 1970s. It would also be around the same time, September 19th, 1977, that Black Monday would take place in Youngstown, Ohio. This day would go down in history as when Youngstown Sheet and Tube would forever close its doors, leading to over 5,000 people all losing their job within a span of 24 hours. This would lead to the booming population of over 150,000 declining fast to the modern 60,000 that we now know today. With such a decline in population, a total of over 50,000 plus jobs would disappear from the valley along with those citizens.
The stories of families losing everything in just a matter of weeks is well too familiar with the Youngstown steelworkers. And here we are only 46 years later with families still trying to recover from those actions that happened on Black Monday, with buildings just like this left over in the turmoil from those days.
Ladies and gentlemen, the news we've received this morning from Youngstown Sheet and Tube is just the worst possible news that we as your elected public officials could have received. The first question, I think, in everybody's mind is there anything we can do? And if so, what will we do? We, as a group, all the elected officials are in the process now of exploring what we can do to moderate the impact of Youngstown Sheet and Tube's announcements today. We will be working very closely.
Here we are now in 2024, where Youngstown still plays host to massive amounts of crime and drug-related issues.
In fact, according to the Ohio Department of Health, the ODH, in 2023, Ohio recorded 4,452 unintentional drug overdose deaths. And according to an article written by WKBN about 2 years ago, there have been over 250 plus homicides in Youngstown alone since the year 2000. This doesn't include any homicides after the year 2022. Thus, since the year 2010, Youngstown's population rate has declined over 20%. With a vacancy rate that now sits at 12.4%, according to the Census Bureau data, that's 1 in every 8 houses that is now vacant. Keep in mind, this is when our country is supposed to be suffering from a housing shortage. So with Youngstown right now being the #1 place to retire in all the country, why is it that there are so many houses, and why is it that nobody seems to be coming here?
It is in my opinion that the picture that has been painted for Youngstown isn't quite exactly true. There are people here every day who are dying from homelessness, drug activity, and even murder. So yes, it is true that Youngstown can be a tourist attraction, but among these tourist attractions cannot be the people suffering among these forgotten brick roads. Thank you everyone for watching. This was a non-profit video for educational purposes only. I do not own all of the footage in this video, and I just want to say thank you so much for everyone who helped take part in this, and God bless the families that were spoken about today.